welcome to episode 36 of the Tea and Possibilities podcast. I'm Nikki and this is a podcast all about knitting, crochet and making all the things here in East London. You can find me on Instagram at hippie_Nikki. I'm Nikki Hippie on Ravelry, and you can join our group if you search for Tea and Possibilities under the groups tab on Ravelry. Links to everything I talk about in this episode will be on my blog, so if you have a look for the link just down below, you'll be able to find everything right there. As always, I would like to say a massive welcome to any new viewers. Thank you so much for giving the podcast a shot, and a particularly big thank you to my returning viewers. Thank you for coming back and for bearing with me while I was moving and all of the kind of delay and everything that was going on. It was a mad time, but it's done. We're in. I've got my books back. And as you probably caught in the intro there, it's now a podcast based in East London. So we are officially settled and not planning to move for a while yet. No, but literally I have made Rich promise that we're not going to move for like 2 years because I hate moving and I just don't want to move for a while because I really like it here. No more moving. This week's tea, I'm back in my mug collection, guys. This is my Hippie Chick mug from the Jamie Oliver collection. I love my Hufflepuff mug, but I was very glad to have a choice of mugs now that we've unpacked everything. And this week's tea is Snore and Peace, which I think is a Clipper blend. And I've mentioned it before because I've said it's a bedtime tea, and I have it during the day because it's delicious and I find it really light and refreshing. So yeah, I drink it during the day as well as in the evening. Couple of little admin bits before we crack on with the episode. I just wanted to remind you about the Best Year Ever Cow. This is a year-long knit-along that started on the 1st of January this year, 2017, and will be running until the 31st of December this year, 2017. All you have to do to qualify is to knit or crochet 4 items that bring you joy. They don't necessarily have to be for you. If making for your friends and family, if making for charity, if that makes you happy, totally fine with me as long as it makes you happy. The whole point of this cow was to get people to focus their minds on the little things that bring them joy to try and make this your best year ever. As a part of the cow, I was running kind of a pen pal grouping alongside it, and I was doing that every quarter, and unfortunately this quarter was a bit manic with moving and going on holiday and all that good stuff. So I wasn't able to do that, so I opened a thread in the Ravelry group. So if you would like to find a pen pal, that is your best place to look. One last thing that I would like to do before we crack on with Whipped Up is announce the winners of my 1-year podiversary giveaway. I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who participated. I had about 66 entries in the end, and you all said such lovely things and I really appreciate it. It's good to know that you like that I talk about other things apart from knitting and crochet. It's lovely to know that you don't mind that I'm not particularly good at knitting and crochet. I think there are podcasters out there who are experts and they are brilliant, and I feel very much that I am not quite on that level, and the fact that a couple of people called that out as something they like was very reassuring and really nice for me, so thank you. So I closed the thread on Saturday, which was the 27th, 28th? I don't know. I closed the thread yesterday on Saturday, and you had an extra week to enter because I wasn't able to podcast the week before, so I hope you all got your entries in. And I used random number generator from 2 to 66 to pull my winners. First up is the winner of this beautiful project bag and matching stitch markers from a Single Strand Studio. And the winner is Post 26, Pie Wacket, who is Alison. This is for you, so this is your prize that you can claim from me. The next prize is this beautiful project bag from Spool Stories. It's definitely sweater sized, and it has this great leatherette PVC bottom, so you can take it anywhere you want and you know that it's not going to get sticky or get anything on it. You can just wipe it down, everything is going to be safe. And the winner of this is Post 32, Mum of Peg, who is Carey. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, sorry if I don't get it quite right. So this is for you to claim from me. Last but by no means least was a fantastic prize donated by Ellie of Skein Deer Knits which is her Selbu Mitten Club. This was a digital download and it is going to Post 46 E. Bernison, who is Emily. So keep an eye on your Rav mail. I will speak to Ellie about getting that gifted to you. For my project bag winners, so that's Pie Wacket / Alison and Mum of Peg / Kerry, if you wouldn't mind dropping me a Ravelry message with your address, I will get them in the post as soon as I can and I will message you to let you know they're on their way. Thank you again to everybody who took part. I really appreciate it and I am very excited to send out my winners' prizes. But now we've got all of the admin-y stuff out of the way, let's move on to Whipped Up. This week, guys, I have a finished object, and as you can probably tell by how I said that, I'm a little bit dubious about this finished object, but I'm going to show it to you. It's my Cornish Affection! This is the Colour Affection by Vera Valimaki, and it's knit out of custom dyed yarns from Stranded Dye Works. Unfortunately, custom dyes are no longer available from Stranded, but she has many other beautiful colourways, so it hardly matters. But this is completely finished, well, not completely, because as you can see, I've got some ends to weave in and it needs a good block. I was going to do that yesterday, but unfortunately it would not have dried in time, and I wanted to show it to you guys and have a chat about it, because when I get it out, I love it because the colours are gorgeous and the style, the pattern does kind of create the beachiness that I wanted. And I think my mum will love it because I've made it, because the yarn is lovely and she really appreciates handmade gifts and she does love these colours. However, I have mentioned on previous podcasts that I did a lot of knitting on this during meetings at work, and that meant that I completely forgot to do the modification. I didn't know about the modification. I was planning to do the modification and I started doing it in a meeting and I just didn't do it. Now, a modification is that you put a yarn over at the beginning of every row because, as you can no doubt see, it's quite tight along the top there. It's quite tight and it kind of bunches up slightly. Now, when you wear it, I'm just going to pop it on. Try not to get lipstick on it. When you wear it, it's absolutely fine. And you can kind of pull that bit down and it will stretch out a little bit when I block it. And it looks great. And it's actually got quite a nice little curl because of it, which I quite like. But, you know, I did notice it when I was, not so much on this wedge bit, I have to say, not so much here, but around the first stripy section, I did notice it. And I thought, do I pull this out and start again and do the modification? And I had it in my head that I needed it done by Christmas and I didn't want to pull it out because I was enjoying knitting on it so much. The short rows are fabulous and I loved doing them and I felt like I was getting really good at them, so it was making me want to do it more. Yeah, so I didn't do the modification, I didn't rip it out when I realised that I hadn't done it, and now I look at it and it's great, isn't it? It's beautiful, it's such a lovely pattern and the colours are perfect. But yeah, I think if I did it again, and I'm planning to, I would definitely do the modification. And I feel a bit mean saying that because, as I said, it is a gift, but I don't think my mum will mind. I don't think it matters that much. And I do think it's beautiful, and I'm just so looking forward to soaking it, to buying some beachy things to go along with it. I'm wondering if I can get some kind of sea salt chocolate and maybe a DVD or something, or something set somewhere tropical and gorgeous, maybe Eat, Pray, Love, I don't know, but it's going to be a very themed Christmas gift this year. But yeah, I am planning to knit another Colour Affection shawl with the yarns that I picked up at Edinburgh Yarn Festival. These yarns were originally intended to go into a Hogwarts inspired Find Your Fade. So I got 5 colours. I've got the Hogwarts Crest Purple, Hufflepuff Yellow, Ravenclaw Blue, Slytherin Green and Gryffindor Red. And I was planning to do an epic Find Your Fade and call it Find Your House. And if you've seen earlier episodes, you'll know that I had so much trouble with that pattern. I just couldn't get on with it. And then I saw a completed one at Fibre East, and it was massive. Someone was using it as a tablecloth. That's how big it was. And I thought it will look beautiful when I finish this shawl, but I'm not going to get that much wear out of it because it is so big. So I'm going to use those yarns in something else. And I think 3 of the colours would look gorgeous in this. I'm thinking the purple, the blue and the green. Those really jewel tones will look stunning. So I think I will be casting that on. I might make it my car knitting for our journey down to Cornwall this Christmas. So watch this space for that. So yeah, I think I started off when I bound it all off, thinking it was a bit of a faux fail. And the more I think about it, the more I think, no, I've learned a lot from this. I've learned so much about short rowing. I know how I'm going to redo the pattern when I knit it again. And frankly, I bound it off while I was watching Bake Off. And never forget Liam, frankly. So I was probably not in a great mood to begin with, to kind of have a genuine opinion about my finished shawl. Next up, you can probably already see it in my lap because it's massive. It's my Shanghai Stripes, but I'm on the border, guys. Now, you must think I've done an awful lot of crochet in the last 3 weeks, because I said in the last episode that I wanted, oh, I'm all tangled, oh God, that I wanted to finish the 6th repeat, and then I had 2 more repeats and then the border to go. So you're probably thinking, wow, she finished the 6th, she did the 7th, she did the 8th, and now she's on the border? Not quite what happened. I finished the 6th repeat a few days ago because I actually ran out of yarn. So I had to order some more yarn for it. So much for a stash busting project, eh? And when I finished the 6th repeat, I looked at it. Nope. And I thought, that's quite big. It helped that I was sat on our sofa in our flat. So excited, I'm still not over it, guys. And I kind of had it over my legs while I was working on it. And I thought, this is a pretty perfect sofa blanket, actually. This works, this is fine. And I thought, if I make it any bigger, it's going to become like a bed blanket. And it's not going to be as useful. You know, this size, it can be taken out on car journeys, on picnics. Maybe if her bag's big enough, she could even have it to curl up with on the plane when she flies home. You know, things like that. It's a lot more useful to have it slightly smaller. So I just thought I'm going to crack on with the border. And I'm doing, I think it's called hump stitch. It's a half treble, which is the English term. I think it's a double crochet in US terms. Sorry. I'm doing a half treble UK, which I believe to be a double in US. I find the UK-US crochet terminology very confusing, so I'm really sorry if that is incorrect. I will put the information in the show notes and on my Rav page. But I think it's called hump stitch, where you kind of crochet into the back of the stitch and you get this kind of step effect. And I really like this. And I'm going to do quite a chunky border. I think I'm going to do, so I've done a row of grey, and then I think I'm going to do 2 rows of red, another row of grey, a row of red, and then a row of grey. And I'm almost certain it's all going to be hump stitch, but I have kind of got in my mind that maybe that last row of grey should be crab stitch, because I've recently seen that online. I think Amy mentioned it when she finished her crochet granny stripe on the Stranded podcast. But I've heard of it, I've looked it up, I think it's lovely. But this is such a simple blanket, I almost think it might be too fussy. So I might try it and we'll see. But yeah, I am so happy with this. It feels so good to be on the kind of home stretch. And I've got plenty of time to do a fairly chunky border. And again, if as I'm working on it, I think the border's getting too chunky, I'll just finish early. Totally fine, not a problem. So yeah, I am so happy to be finishing up with this. I am going to wrap this up and I'm going to put in some very English goodies. I'm going to put in some Yorkshire Gold tea, maybe some dairy milk or something like that, just to make it a really home from home kind of gift. Rich also really likes this. I think he's angling for kind of a crochet blanket for our home, because I made, when we moved into our first flat together, I made some pretty dubious looking granny square blankets. So they're not really a good shape because they're square, and the colours were kind of just what I picked up, what they had at Hobbycraft. So yeah, I might in the new year have a little think about some colours for our flat and make something for our sofa. I don't know. Maybe I'll just do a scrap granny. I really like those. Amy on Stranded has just finished hers and it looks beautiful. It would also be a good way of using up the leftovers from my Cozy Memories blanket. I feel like I've talked myself into this, don't you? Speaking of my Cozy Memories blanket, that is now, apart from my Shanghai Stripes, my only other whip. Speechless. I've had a hat on the go for so long, or another one in the planning stages, so as soon as I cast one off, I can cast the other on. I feel a bit bereft, really. I mentioned in my last podcast that I wanted to have more stuff ready to go and just to pick up and work on. And I didn't feel, because we're in such a state of flux, because we were moving and all of that, I didn't feel like I wanted to start anything. I didn't feel in a position to be swatching and casting on the jumpers that I want to cast on. So yeah, I am now without a project. I have a few days off coming up. I am planning, after kind of the manic year we've had, we've done a lot of moving. We've moved twice. Yes, we moved from Portsmouth to my family's and then from my family's to here. We've moved twice. I am kind of dedicating November to being really chill and being very much based on self-care. So that's going to be a lot of clearing out things that I need to do, and a lot of chill time, and I've got a massive list of just really cozy films to watch. So I'm planning a big cast on party next weekend. But in order to do that, I need to swatch. So in this gorgeous Eldenwood craft bag, which is one of my favourites, it is so beautiful. I just love her stuff. And one of these days, I'm going to get a sheepy bag. One day. But in here, I have my Stranded skeins. You may remember I picked these up at Pomfest from my lovely friend Amy, who is a genius. They make me so happy. I am knitting a pavement out of this. This is her Industrial Kingfisher colourway, and it is, yes, it's her Oasis base. So that is merino nylon, and it's gorgeous. And I think it's going to be so beautiful. And I will be alternating skeins because I listen. But I will be swatching for that this week, getting it blocked and figured out so that next weekend, I'm off Friday to the following week. I've got everything ready to go and I can just cast on, so there's none of the like swatching and figuring out to do. All of the work is done and I can just do the good bit of casting on. I also picked up this, which is this incredible tealy gorgeousness. I wear a lot of blue. She says wearing a red top, but I am not super into pastels, and I really love like jewel tones and jewel bright colours. So really autumnal colours I love, really bright, like this. This is perfect. And this is on her Paradise base, which is her merino nylon cashmere. And it's gorgeous and I love it. And this was going to be a soiree. However, the more I think about it, the more I wonder how much wear I would get out of a soiree. Because it's cropped and I like it. And I don't think it makes me, I don't think it's unflattering on me. But I just don't know how much I would wear it. And so I'm reconsidering. And I am thinking I would like to turn this into something else. And I'm not sure what. I have the May, which is like a short sleeve jumper by Andrea Mowry on my queue. So I think this might become the May, but I'm not sure. I do have light trails on my in my Ravelry queue, but I've kind of set my heart on doing that in the Madeline Tosh begonia leaf, which I fell in love with when I did the hat. So yeah, I think this might be May, so I might be swatching for May this week as well. I do have one more sweater quantity of yarn, which is Yarn Collective. I think it's worsted weight. I would have to double check, and it's in a gorgeous coppery ginger colour. And the reason I can't show it to you is because it's still packed away. We have mostly unpacked, but I haven't found homes for my stash, so it's all kind of packaged at the moment. And I am going to knit the gingerbread jumper by Libby Johnson, who is Truly Myrtle, out of that. So that's another sweater I might be swatching for. I kind of feel like I want to swatch for all of them and get them all cast on if I can. I don't know if I have enough needles. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But I want to get as many cast on as I can, because then I've just got lots of grab and go projects. I'm also considering casting on another hat. I know. But I've got a really gorgeous brown skein of yarn that is just, oh, it's so nice. And I think it would look gorgeous on a friend for Christmas. And I have plans to make the December booties for my friend's baby for Christmas. And not forgetting, Rich requested a pair of wrist warmers this time last year. And I do have the yarn for it, I just need to measure his hands and get them knitted. And I've also got my Selby mittens, which I've caked up and I'm ready to go. And I'll be making those for my nan for Christmas. So I have a lot of plans. Everything is just right there, imminent. What would that work out as? That would be 3 jumpers, a wrist warmer, some mittens, and a hat. That'd be 6 whips. Is that too many whips? I don't feel like that's too many whips. I feel like the mittens and the wrist warmers I would work on kind of almost monogamously to get them done in time for Christmas and the really cold weather. And then I'd have 3 jumpers that I could just pick up and work on as and when I wanted to. And then a hat for going out and about. I feel like 6 might be the perfect number. So yeah, that was a lot of kind of very vague thought knitting, really, wasn't it then? If you know of any gorgeous fingering weight jumpers, do mention them in the comments below, because even if my gorgeous tealy jade colour does not get used for one of those, I have a queue. I have a queue that needs some love, because I scrolled through my queue and was like, where are all my fingering weight jumpers? This is what I want. This is what I need. I commute. Now that we've moved, I take the bus rather than the tube. But even so, it can get very, very warm and very, very busy. So I feel that even in darkest depths of winter, I'm better off with a fingering weight jumper and a scarf and a hat and a coat. Things that I can easily shed rather than a really hefty worsted weight or heavier jumper. So yeah, send me any that you love. I will be, like I say, I've got some time off. I'll probably just have a, chick flick film on and maybe Bridget Jones's Diary, and I will start flicking through my pom-poms as well. So I haven't knit anything out of pom-pom ever. So I feel like maybe it was going to be a soiree. Maybe it should be something else from pom-pom. Answers on a postcard. One more thing I do want to share before we move on to Here Be Spoilers is a beautiful gift that I received in the post. This was from the lovely Jilly of Mrs. S Creations, and she has sent me 2 project bags. This is the first one. I hope you can see this all right. I like to leave them in the plastic because I feel like when I send them out to you, that's a much nicer way to receive them. But this is a gorgeous project bag with a lovely kind of brown fabric with little birds on. I think that's like a little robin and a blue tit, and some yummy tea. So there is my favourite green tea with gingerbread in there as well. And it's got this lovely PVC base. I've noticed this a lot more on project bags, and I really like it because it means, as I've said before, you can take it to a coffee shop, you can take it to the pub, you can put it down and know that if it's a bit of a sticky surface, if there's any crumbs or anything like that, it's going to be fine. It's not going to get into the bag. You can wipe it down, totally fine. And she also sent a slightly larger one with this gorgeous Parisian fabric. It's so lovely. And again, it's got the white clean base and the tea. And she has said one of these is for me and one of these is for you guys. So I would be putting one of these in my little box of Best Year Ever Cow prizes. I'm actually going to find myself a box so I can keep them all together really neatly. And maybe towards the end of the year, I'll get them all out to remind you what you could be winning. Problem is, I can't choose. I'm really not sure which one to keep because I think they're both lovely. But I really do like the bird one. So yeah, that's something I'm kind of mulling over at the moment. Which to keep, which to give. Oh, it's such a difficult decision. So thank you, Jilly. These are beautiful. I can't wait to give one away. I've got 6 cast-ons coming up, so one of these is definitely going to be holding one of my new cast-ons. I just have to decide which, and you've made it very difficult for me. Which is the best difficult decision ever, of course. But now let's move on to Hear Me Spoilers. I loved sharing my books with you last week. I was really excited when I opened the thread and you guys started sharing your top 3 books, because there were so many in there that I've never read. In fact, I think they might have all been ones I've never read, because shockingly enough, there are millions of books and there's so many opportunities to find another world to fall in love with. I have I've recently read A Court of Thorns and Roses. I say recently, I think it was the beginning of the year, and I never got around to reading the other 2, so I've got those queued up for when I finally finish The Mountain Shadow, which is massive. So, and I'm only really getting to read it on the bus at the moment, so I've got those queued up. But then there were so many Arthurian books that you guys mentioned, and thank you for that. I am scouting them down and putting them on my Kindle wish list, so they're all there. I love my Kindle wish list getting really long, because it means no matter what mood I'm in, I can find something. So at the moment, before it was quite historical fiction heavy, because I'm a historical fiction junkie. I love Philippa Gregory. I thought her Plantagenet series particularly was very good. I got a little bit bored of the Tudors, you know. But yeah, I really loved the White Queen, the Red Queen, the Lady of the Rivers, and the White Princess. Those were excellent. But now there's a lot more Arthurian legend in my list. There's some more fantasy stuff, and that is down to you. So yeah, just thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. And I'm hoping that you're going to help me fill up my November wish list for films, because that is what we're going to be talking about this week, my top 3 films. I have to say that the first 2 on my list were really easy, because they have been my favourite films for a very long time. The third one was really difficult, because there are so many great films out there. And I ended up putting on something that was fairly new. So we'll come to that. As always, this is in no particular order, because I think that's too cruel. I've already limited myself to 3, so I'm not going to limit myself any further by ranking them. First up, just because it has been my favourite film since I was about 6, and that is Jurassic Park, the original and the best. I love this film. Now, just to set the scene, it came out, was I 5 or 6? I was tiny and I was obsessed with dinosaurs. I thought that I was going to be a paleontologist, but at 5, 6, I was obsessed with dinosaurs. I loved them. I thought they were the most fascinating things in the world. I collected the toys. I had all these books. I think back then they were even releasing like a weekly magazine about dinosaurs, where you collected like glow-in-the-dark bones and you put it together and you built a T-Rex. Loved it. So when I heard about this film coming out with dinosaurs in, obviously I had to see it. I don't actually know what the rating is for Jurassic Park. I just remember not being scared of it at all. My mum took me, and I think it might have been it's my first memory of going to the cinema. I don't know if it's the first time my mum took me to the cinema. It's definitely my first real memory, because we made a real big thing of it. My mum got popcorn. That's when I discovered I didn't like popcorn. So I got sweets, and I insisted that we sit in the front row, even though my mum said, you know, if you're at the back, you see more. And I was like, no, I want them up close and personal. I also learnt on that day, on that occasion, you need to sit in the back row. So I did learn something. You were right, Mum. And I just remember sitting there like this, staring up, and it was incredible. The special effects, the story, I completely fell in love with Alan Grant and Ellie Sattler for very different reasons. I wanted to be her and I wanted to marry him. And it was just wonderful. And I remember not being scared. And when I kind of watch it now, because I still watch it now, I kind of look at it and the stuff at the end with the velociraptors. This is spoiler territory, but I feel like this film is like nearly 30 years old. So if you haven't seen it yet, you're probably not going to. But yeah, the bit where the kid's being hunted by the velociraptors is intense. And I'm really shocked that I didn't have nightmares, but I was just so fascinated. I was fascinated by how they hunted, like the fact they worked together as a team, whereas the T-Rex was a lone hunter. It was the first time I'd heard this theory that he couldn't see you if you didn't move. It blew my mind, can you tell? And even now, I watch it and I love it. It's a great story. It is fantastic special effects, actually, because I went a few years without watching it, and then I watched it again thinking, this is going to look terrible. It's going to look like that episode of Doctor Who with John Pertwee, where there's dinosaurs and it's like these little models. That's what I thought it was going to look like. It didn't. It looks amazing. Like, it stands the test of time. It has aged fantastically well. The costumes, everything, you don't look at it and go, God, what were we doing in the 90s? It has aged fantastically. It's one of the only films that I can think of from my childhood that I can go back and go, this looks great. This is brilliant. I'd wear Ellie's outfit any day of the week. So yeah, Jurassic Park, guys. I suppose if I were ranking them, that would be my number one. Next up is a very different film. It is Big Fish. I love this film. I don't think I saw it in the cinema. I think I saw it on TV and then I got the DVD because I think I only saw it in part on TV. You know, you catch it halfway through. So I got the DVD and I just fell in love with it. Ewan McGregor is one of my favourite actors. I saw him recently in Fargo, thought he did an amazing job. I love the stuff he's done, The Long Way Down, The Long Way Round. He's just such a personable, warm, lovely actor, and he's an incredibly good actor as well. Moulin Rouge is another of my favourites. But particularly in Big Fish, you couldn't have anyone else in this film. Not to give too much away, even though here be spoilers. This is a film about a man visiting his dying father and trying to find out the truth of his father's life, because it turns out that his father has told him the story of his life as a succession of very tall tales. And you know, that's great when you're a kid, but as you grow up, you just want to know who your dad really is. And so you see these tall tales. Ewan McGregor is his father as a younger man, winning over his mother, you know, the adventures he had during the war, and they are kind of believable up to a point, and then you're like, it goes into the realms of fantasy, and it's incredible. And it's about how it's a beautiful love story, firstly between this guy's parents and the power of friendship, because he's had these incredible friends throughout his life. And it's also about the relationship between this man and his father. And what I love is it kind of almost says at the end, you know, the stories you tell of yourself are just as important as the truth, because the stories are who you wish you could be. Oh, and I just love it. I love it so much. And when he, you know, when his wife opens up the window and he's stood in a field full of daffodils that he's collected for her, yeah, that's just beautiful. I love it so much. It's such a warm, gentle film. God, just watch it. If you haven't seen it, I think it's Tim Burton. It's got Helena Bonham Carter in it, which is probably why I'm assuming it's Tim Burton. And it's kind of got that Burton-esque kind of darkness. So it's not super light and fluffy. There is an element of, you know, this could go badly wrong at some point, but mostly it's just perfect and I adore it. Finally, my last pick is the new film. I think it only came out last year. We only watched it earlier this year. It was only a couple of months ago, actually. And that is Arrival. and it stars Amy Adams, and it's very difficult to describe what happens in this film without giving anything away, and I can't give anything away because it's incredible. But basically, aliens come to Earth and they can't speak to them. We can't communicate. We don't conveniently know that language. They don't conveniently speak English. So they get Amy Adams, who is a linguist and speaks something incredible like 30 languages. And they bring her in to try and communicate with them. And they don't use words in the way we do. They use kind of visual language almost. And it's really, really fascinating, the kind of way that she deals with this and how she makes kind of first contact and how she develops her understanding of their vocabulary and their language. That is fascinating in itself, but the story is heartbreaking, and it raises some really interesting questions about, you know, how much foreknowledge is too much. I'm trying to be really cagey because I don't want to give it away, because the kind of story that is revealed is so good that you don't want to waste this, really. You don't. I would love to know if you've seen it. Rich and I were talking about it for ages afterwards, because it raises one very big question that does get you talking, and it's just so interesting. And I thought it was beautifully shot, beautifully written. Amy Adams does an incredible job. Jeremy Renner is in it, also does an incredible job. The whole thing, perfect. It is one of the most intelligent sci-fis I've ever seen, because it's not just people running around in space shooting tentacled aliens, which I love. I love sci-fi and I love that kind of sci-fi, but this was a real refreshing change. And for all the people who think that they don't like sci-fi because it's that kind of cartoony comic book almost style, this I think you'll love. I would love to hear what your top 3 films are, so please do go to the top 3 thread in the Ravelry group and let me know. But for now, let's move on to Knit and Natter. This week's Knit and Natter is slightly delayed. I wanted to talk about it in the last episode, but as I said, I was kind of running late to go and see Blade Runner, also a very good film. Blade Runner 2049, I should say, not the original. And because of that, I didn't want to talk about this because I didn't want to rush through it. A few weeks ago, towards the end of September, I was catching up on some Pomcast episodes. I had fallen a little bit behind, so I was catching up with them on the tube. And one episode in particular really stuck with me, and I'm thinking about it even now. That was episode 41, where they interviewed Pamela Wynne Butler about her new knitting book, Handsome. I was incredibly moved by this interview because the book that she has written, the knitting pattern book, I should say, is designed for everyone. The tagline is actually, and I'm just going to read it to get it absolutely right, Handsome is a collection of 6 menswear sweater patterns designed to fit every size, shape and gender of adult human. Now, Pamela is the Associate Director of Gender Studies at Notre Dame University. So she has a really strong understanding of the issues that transgender people face. And she was talking in this interview of how her transgender friends often struggle with things like clothes, because, you know, the clothes you buy in the high street are not designed with them in mind. So they may come across certain issues that non-transgender people wouldn't, and the clothing does not accommodate that. So what Pamela wanted to do was to create designs that would fit everyone. And it's not just for transgender men. You know, some of these are gorgeous, I'd wear them. They are, as she says, for every size, shape and gender of adult human. But for me, what I loved and what I found so moving about this interview was the fact that she was talking about her desire to create something that would make people feel included, and people who often do feel sidelined because our society doesn't really understand transgender issues in the way that we understand, you know, cisgendered issues. And this was complete news to me because I am a straight cisgendered woman. I'm not aware of these issues, and it was incredibly moving to me that somebody who had taken the time and the care to design a collection of patterns to say, hey, you too, come in, join us, you can have this too. And it made me feel incredibly proud, because I am part of a community that cares enough to do that. Transgender people face discrimination day in, day out, I'm sure. Again, I don't know in detail what that discrimination always looks like, because I am very, very privileged that I don't get discriminated against in that way. But to do something like this, which may seem to some people like a very small thing, Pamela was talking in this interview about how she designed these sweaters for her friends who were the models in the book, and when she gave it to them and when they pulled it on and it fit and it worked for them, they were very emotional about it, because they felt like someone had cared enough to do this for them. And while I absolutely believe that human rights are incredibly important, these little things as well are just as important. Making people feel included, making people feel loved is so important, and it just made me so happy and so proud, to the point where I was actually tearing up on the tube, that knitting can do that. Knitting can bring people who might feel sidelined by society in, and I love that. And I think that this is an incredibly powerful thing for her to have done, and I hope that she is proud of herself, because I am proud of this. I don't know this woman. She's an incredible designer, I know that. And I just feel like we as a community should be so proud of her for doing that, for saying, hey, the knitting community welcomes you, cares about you, believes that you are totally worth the time and care that designing 6 knitting patterns takes. And it just kind of brings me back to what I've been referring to throughout the year, which is that your knitting has so much power. And I don't advocate for only knitting for other people or knitting more for other people. I don't think there's anything wrong with being a selfish knitter. I fully intend next year to be a selfish knitter, because I want more stuff for my wardrobe, and I've done a lot of knitting for other people this year, and for me it's going to fill my bucket, as Jasmine on the Knit More Girls says, it's going to fill my bucket next year to knit for myself. But this year it has filled my bucket to create things for other people, to make a hat for my nan so that she would have something lovely for her birthday, just before we moved out, to knit hats for my friends who had been away for 6 months, just to say we really missed you and we're so glad to have you back. Knitting has so much power, not only to make you feel good, but to spread that love, if you so wish. And as I say, I don't think it matters whether you are selfish or a selfless knitter, which are 2 terms I don't really like. But regardless of that, whether you knit to give or you knit for yourself, you are creating something with love, and that can only ever be a positive thing. And I keep saying it, but I'm just so proud to be part of a community that is creative and loving and sharing and inclusive. I know that I'm kind of just rambling now about how wonderful I think this book is, but it is, and it's gorgeous, and the patterns are fantastic. And as I said, there are a couple in there that I kind of looked at and was like, oh, I could make this myself. This is really nice. And there was 1 or 2 in there that I thought Rich would quite like. So yeah, I am really, really encouraging you to go and listen. It's Pomcast 41. And it's the interview with Pamela Wynne Butler, and I heartily recommend it. It's incredibly moving. Just be aware you might need a tissue. I might have just been a little bit hormonal that day. But yeah, for me, I found it very, very moving. That's it for this week. I will maybe see you next week. I'm thinking that I might do a little return to my weekly schedule, but it all depends because I do have a lot of people coming to stay in November. Quite a busy bee at the moment. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I have loved getting back into the swing of things and spending time with you. And I will see you very soon for another cup of tea. Take care. Bye.